The warning had been inscribed in the Codex Primordialis for over 50,000 years, written in the dead languages of civilizations that had learned wisdom through catastrophe. It was simple, direct, and absolute. Let the humans sleep. Do not awaken them. Do not provoke them. Do not remind them of what they once were. The Xylothian Empire, in its infinite arrogance, chose to ignore it. High Commander Vexthor stood aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, gazing at the blue-green world rotating peacefully below. Earth. The legendary homeworld of the species that had once made the galaxy tremble. Now, it was nothing more than a pastoral garden, its inhabitants living in blissful ignorance of their own history. Such a waste, Vexthor muttered, his multiple eyes gleaming with contempt. The mighty humans, reduced to farmers and philosophers. His tactical officer, a younger Xylothian named Kretios, shifted uncomfortably. Commander, the ancient protocols specifically forbid. The ancient protocols were written by cowards. Vexthor snapped. Look at them down there. No weapons. No warships. No orbital defenses. They've been pacified for 20 millennia. The stories about humanity's wrath are nothing but myths designed to keep ambitious empires in check. Kretios consulted his data tablet, his mandibles clicking nervously. The Codex says that humanity was given a choice after the War of Extinction: surrender their memories and live in peace, or be destroyed. They chose to forget. The elders enforced a galactic quarantine around their system and warned that. I know what the warnings say, Vexthor interrupted. But empires are not built on caution. Earth's star system sits at a strategic junction. We need it. And we will take it. He turned to his communications officer. Send the ultimatum. The humans have one planetary rotation to evacuate their northern continent. We're establishing a military outpost there. The message was transmitted. And below, on the surface of Earth, something ancient began to stir. Dr. Sarah Chen was in her garden when the headache started. It began as a dull pressure behind her eyes, then exploded into a cascade of images that didn't belong to her, or did they? She saw battlefields spanning light years. Fleets of warships moving in perfect formation. Weapons that unraveled the fabric of reality itself. And screams. Endless screams in languages she somehow understood. Around the world, 10 billion humans collapsed simultaneously, clutching their heads as 20,000 years of suppressed memories came flooding back. The awakening had begun. In Geneva, at the headquarters of the Global Council, alarms blared as ancient systems buried kilometers beneath the surface suddenly activated. Machines that hadn't moved in millennia grown to life. Sealed vaults opened, revealing technologies that made modern quantum computers look like abacuses. Director Marcus Williams stumbled into the command center, his own memories returning in fragmented bursts. He had been a gardener yesterday. But before that, before the long peace, he had been Fleet Admiral Marcus Williams, commander of the 3rd Expeditionary Force during the Purge Wars. Status report, he commanded, the words coming automatically despite 20,000 years of peaceful existence. Sir, the Xylothian Empire has issued an invasion ultimatum, an officer reported, her eyes wide with newly recovered knowledge. They have a battle fleet in orbit. Marcus felt something cold and familiar settling into his chest. It was the feeling he thought he'd never experience again, calculated fury. How many ships? He asked quietly. 300 warships, sir. Dreadnought class and above. Marcus almost smiled. They really have no idea, do they? Across Earth, military installations that had been camouflaged as mountains, lakes, and forests began to reveal themselves. The planet itself seemed to transform, shedding its disguise like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. Weapon batteries rose from ocean floors. Shipyards hidden in the mantle began production cycles. And in orbit, invisible until now, the defense grid activated. Commander Vexthor watched in growing horror as his sensors suddenly detected not an empty orbital space, but a network of defense satellites so dense that they formed a solid sphere around the planet. That's impossible, he whispered. They weren't there a moment ago. They were always there, Commander, Kretios said, his voice hollow. We just couldn't see them. The elders tried to warn us. Humans didn't lose the war. They won so decisively that they chose to forget who they were. They chose peace. And we just reminded them why they needed to forget. The communication channel crackled to life. A human voice, calm and cold, spoke in perfect galactic standard. Xylothian vessels, this is Earth Defense Command. You have violated the Concordat of eternal peace. You have awakened a species that agreed to sleep for the good of all life in the galaxy. This was inadvisable. Vexthor grabbed the communication console. You cannot threaten us. We have 300 warships. We are the dominant power in this sector. There was a pause. Then, almost gently, the human voice responded, 300 warships. Yes. We counted them. In the old days, the days you just forced us to remember, we considered 300 ships to be a scouting party. Tell me, Commander, did the elders ever explain why humanity agreed to forget? Did they tell you what we did during the War of Extinction? Vexthor felt his blood cooling. The Codex said you nearly destroyed yourselves. No, Commander. We nearly destroyed everyone else. We were so efficient at warfare, so ruthlessly innovative, that we rendered 17 species extinct before we realized we had become the very thing we had always fought against, monsters. So we made a choice. We erased our own memories, surrendered our weapons, and asked the galaxy to leave us alone. We became farmers and poets and philosophers. We chose to be better. The defense grid began to glow with charging energy. But you couldn't leave well enough alone, could you? You had to poke the sleeping tiger. You had to remind us of what we were capable of. Around Earth, massive structures began emerging from subspace, not ships, but mobile fortress stations, each one capable of glassing a planet. Hundreds of them. Thousands. So here's what's going to happen, the human voice continued. You're going to leave. You're going to return to your empire and tell them that the humans are awake. You're going to reinforce the quarantine. And you're going to pray that we choose to go back to sleep. Vexthor found his voice. And if we don't leave? Then you'll discover why the elders were so terrified of us that they agreed to erase our memories rather than risk fighting us again. You'll learn why 17 species chose extinction rather than surrender to human rule. You'll understand why the galaxy celebrated when we agreed to forget. The charging energy reached critical levels. Every weapon system pointed at the Xylothian fleet simultaneously. Choose quickly, Commander. Our patience, like our mercy, has limits. Vexthor looked at his tactical display. 300 warships against a defense network that made the Concordat's combined fleets look primitive. There was no choice at all. Retreat, he whispered. Then, louder, all ships, retreat. Maximum speed. The Xylothian fleet fled, leaving Earth's space in a panicked scramble. As they entered FTL, Vexthor accessed the Codex Primordialis and finally read the full entry about humanity. The parts that had been restricted to military clearance only. His blood turned to ice as he read about the Purge Wars. About human innovation that turned stars into weapons. About the mercy humanity had shown by choosing to forget rather than rule. The elders hadn't sealed away humanity to protect the galaxy from humans. They'd sealed away humanity to protect humans from themselves. And someone had just broken that seal. On Earth, as the threat departed, Director Williams stood on a balcony overlooking the Awaken planet. Cities that had been disguised as forests now gleamed with technology. Orbital elevators connected ground to space. The true face of humanity, hidden for 20 millennia, was revealed once more.